You know, no matter how crazy a concept may sound, there's always potential in it being amazing. A small blue animal who can run at the speed of sound and fights a fat, bald scientist to save the world. The daily life of an undersea sponge who works at a fast food restaurant and is trying to get his driver's license. Or the story of a young man being indoctrinated into a magical cult by an old man, then going on to join a terrorist group trying to dismantle a government and destroying a military installation. I think that's what happens. It's been a while since I last saw A New Hope. The point is that no matter how insane or dumb an idea sounds, there's always a chance that it can be made into something great. Anyways, Netflix just produced a TV show about Elvis Presley being a secret agent.
Excuse me, what?
Agent Elvis is a Netflix original show about an absurd alternate history where music legend Elvis Presley is a part-time vigilante who's recruited into a secret agency to go on missions around the globe and save democracy or something. When I first saw the trailer for this pop up earlier this year, I knew it was going to be something I needed to check out. With a crazy concept like that, I knew it was going to be fun to talk about. But what further caught my eye was that the animation for the show would be done by none other than Sony Animation, the same studio that made Across the Spider-Verse. It was literally a
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Moment for me. And yeah, the trailer visually looked really damn good and very stylized. However, just because the animation looked great, didn't mean that the writing and everything else would be up to par. This is Netflix we're talking about, the same guys who will greenlight literally anything. But to my surprise, it wasn't half bad.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Voice acting is pretty good across the board here, with everyone doing great with their roles, with a couple standouts for me personally being Matthew McConaughey and Don Cheadle. McConaughey does a pretty good job at voicing the title character. He doesn't just try and do some basic Elvis impression like practically anyone can do. Instead, he's kinda just speaking with his regular southern voice and plays into a few recognizable quirks with how Elvis spoke, which I think works well here. Plus, I think having to listen to an Elvis impression for over 2.5 hours straight would have been pretty irritating. So that fact alone makes this show way better in my eyes. But I also want to give props to Don Cheadle, as his voice range is great in this. He plays an over-the-top character, the Commander, and does a great job making him feel like an unhinged psychopath.
So now I seem to have two reasons to be enraged. There's no Elvis here, and we're apparently way fucking behind on developing cloaking devices!
In general, it sounds like he's having a ton of fun with the role and really makes it his own, and that honestly made him the most entertaining character here. And in general, I enjoyed the characters. I mean, there's not really a ton to them besides a couple things here and there, but I never wanted to gouge my eyes out with an ice cream scoop while watching them. They were entertaining and I liked the interactions they had between each other.
Priscilla and I just took some LSD.
Get the fuck out. Look at you being all hip and not square, taking dangerous hallucinogenic drugs.
I didn't take it to be cool, okay? Drugs aren't cool, kids.
And since this show is playing fast and loose with history, it's no surprise that other famous figures showed up here and were doing equally insane things, like Stanley Kubrick shooting the Apollo 11 mission, Howard Hughes being the Q equivalent creating all of the spy gadgets, Timothy Leary being a total drug fanatic, and a lot more. The episodes as well take place during a few notable events, like the Altamont Free Concert, Vietnam during the war, and so on. But at the same time, though, the show uses those famous figures for small cameos in the different episodes, and doesn't really go too in-depth with these different events. For the most part, they use those as the backdrops for the missions the characters go on. So the show really isn't that much about the past historical stuff, and more so uses that as window dressing for the spy stuff. However, the biggest and most obvious thing that piqued my interest about this show, and what helps it stand apart from a lot of others, is the animation. There's a style present in this show that I really like. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels like it invokes an older retro 60s/70s comic book look. It's a night and day difference between this and other adult animated shows that just rip off Family Guy or Rick and Morty style. Everything looks really angular, with a lot of sharp edges on characters and objects, which is complemented extremely well by the thick black outlines present on characters. It really helps make them just pop. Everything has a nice mixture of airbrush and comic book shading that helps give the show its own distinct look. Pretty much all the parts of the animation work extremely well and fluid with each other, and it just creates something that's super unique to look at. There's an episode that deals with drug hallucinations, and the animators really played around with the visuals in that one, and it was really neat seeing what they could pull off. However, I think the action scenes are where the animation and style shine brightest in my eyes. Having fast-paced movements with a lot of particles, lasers, bullets, and a whole assortment of other stuff going on. Playing around with the camera, with there being cuts of different angles, colored backgrounds, exaggerated movements, the works. Anytime there was an action scene, I was immediately hooked because the presentation of it alone was fantastic, and it helped keep my attention the whole way through. But just because the animation and action were great doesn't mean the show is perfect. Although this is labeled by Netflix as a TV comedy, I wouldn't say that the comedy here is that funny. Sort of. For the most part, the jokes here are either half-witty insults, copious amounts of swearing, and shock humor. So a lot of lowbrow comedy for the most part. I really can't say any of it made me laugh, but none of it really made me cringe, sigh, or facepalm. I think that just has to do with lowbrow comedy not really being my cup of tea. So that doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad jokes. And the show, from time to time, actually made me chuckle.
Having a wonderful time!
Not falling for that again.
Okay, look, I know a JFK joke is kind of an easy one to make, but damn it, those keep making me laugh. While the shock and gross out humor really wasn't my thing, I can at least say they aren't too excessive to the point where I just shut the whole thing off. Honestly, I was wanting there to be some more jokes relating to the time period. The ones that are here just really didn't do it for me, and some of them can be a little groan-worthy.
Huh, look at that. Looks like some kind of laser sword.
More like a lightsaber.
Yeah, that works too.
Also, the excessive amounts of swearing really got on my nerves. The characters here were swearing as much as children finding out about the best cuss words at school. The more you swear, the less impact it has, so repeatedly doing it gets annoying. But that's just me, and maybe I'm an old man yelling at clouds here. So again, none of the humor here is atrocious, and is all fine enough. It just would have been nice to see a little more variety and better written jokes. Though, besides the comedy being hit or miss for me, the only other major complaint I have with the show would be its story. Yeah, there's actually a bit of an overarching narrative here, where Elvis and company have to find this machine that makes people go feral. This plot eventually culminates around the last 2 episodes, and this is where the narrative doesn't work that well. The show at this point tries to be a little more serious, where they reveal the big secret between Elvis and the commander, which results in Elvis leaving the agency, only to return to it in the very next episode, deflating any tension there may have been. It's stuff like that that takes me out of the experience, because I could give less of a damn about that kind of stuff. I was wanting to see more crazy shenanigans with stunning animation. A show or movie built on stupidity should not be making me question its stupidity, because Agent Elvis at its best is when it's stupid, dumb fun. Trying to get me to care about the characters and the plot doesn't really make that much sense here. Additionally, sometimes the stupid moments can go a little overboard, leading to them feeling like the writers just thought of the most juvenile thing possible and put it into the script. Such as how the main duo have to get into a secure place at one point, but instead of needing like retinal scans or fingerprints, they need the sculpture of a guy's dick.
Comedy.
The show does a balancing act between stupid and not so stupid, and sometimes it does slip up to where it gets a little too stupid or gross or whatever. But luckily, those moments are few and far between, so it doesn't ruin the whole experience or any of that. Anyways, although I wouldn't say that this series hits the same highs as similar shows like Inside Job or something, I do think that it's a surprisingly alright spy show that has a ton of potential left in it and a lot of room to improve. But unfortunately, even though I would be interested in seeing more of this, Netflix has been doing nothing but axing off shows left and right as of recent, so I don't think this one will be getting a second season, as sad as that may be. But what we have here, though, is okay. Agent Elvis was surprisingly decent, and it was lifted up even higher with its excellent animation, and though I may not think it's as good as some other shows, it certainly cleared that low bar set by other trash adult animated shows. So, with that, I give Agent Elvis a pretty positive 6 out of 10.